Alex had always been a keen observer, a skill that served him well during the long hours at the gas station where he worked. Situated on the outskirts of a bustling city, the station was a small oasis for travelers, truckers, and locals. Despite its size, the place was a crossroads of stories, where every customer brought a snippet of their life to the counter. On this particular day, the sun cast a warm glow over the pumps, and the air was thick with the scent of gasoline and hot pavement. Alex, a young man with a mop of unruly hair and bright, curious eyes, was manning the register. His dream of becoming a writer often found him lost in thought, crafting narratives about the people who came and went. As cars pulled in and out, Alex greeted each customer with a smile, often engaging in small talk that made the mundane task of filling up more pleasant. He had a way with words and a memory for details, remembering the regulars' usual purchases and the subtle changes in their lives they shared with him. Among the day's visitors was Mrs. Jenkins, a sweet elderly lady who never missed her weekly trip to top off her tiny red sit-in and buy a lottery ticket, always hopeful for a big win. Then there was Mr. Thompson, the gruff truck driver whose exterior hardness softened as he spoke fondly of his dog waiting for him at home. As the afternoon wore on, a white van pulled into a far corner of the lot. It wasn't unusual for vehicles to park away from the pumps, but something about this van seemed out of place. It was an older model, with tinted windows and no discernible marks. Alex watched as several people approached the van at different times, exchanging quick handshakes with the driver before quickly departing. At first, Alex thought little of it, chalking it up to his overactive imagination. However, as the hours ticked by, his writer's mind began to spin tales of what might be inside the van. Was it simply a meeting point for friends, or was something more nefarious at play? His gut twisted with a mix of curiosity and concern. Resolving to keep an eye on the situation, Alex continued his work but made sure to note the comings and goings associated with the van. He didn't want to overreact. After all, it wasn't his job to police the patrons. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. His heart raced slightly each time someone new approached the van, and he found himself wishing for someone to share his suspicions with, someone who could take a closer look. Little did he know, the opportunity to act would come sooner than he expected, changing the course of his day, and potentially more, dramatically. As he watched, waiting for his shift to end, the seeds of a real-life drama were being sown right in front of his observant eyes. As the day progressed into the early evening, the comings and goings at the white van became more frequent and hurried. Alex tried to focus on his duties, ringing up sales of snacks and sodas, but his attention was continuously drawn back to the van. Each visitor seemed cautious, looking around before approaching, and left looking over their shoulder, which only fueled Alex's imagination and concern. Alex considered calling the police but hesitated. He had no concrete evidence, just a gut feeling and an overactive writer's imagination. "It's probably nothing," he murmured to himself, trying to dismiss the unsettling thoughts. Yet the more he watched, the more he felt something was wrong. The visitors didn't look like criminals, but their secretive behavior was peculiar. Alex remembered a piece of advice from his father, a retired police officer, who had always said, "Trust your instincts." Taking a discreet approach, Alex decided to jot down the license plate number of the van. He grabbed a notepad from under the counter, pretending to tally inventory as he scribbled the details. He kept the notepad close, just in case it might be needed later. His shift was nearing its end when Officer Daniels pulled into the station. Daniels was a regular, known for his midnight coffee runs and his friendly chats with Alex about college football and local news. As Daniels walked in, his presence was a welcome distraction for Alex. He greeted the officer with a nod and prepared his usual strong black coffee. "Evening, Alex. Anything exciting happening tonight?" Officer Daniels asked casually, his eyes scanning the snack aisle. "Just the usual quiet night, more or less," Alex replied, trying to sound nonchalant. He handed the coffee to Daniels, who thanked him and paid with a crisp $5 bill. As Alex processed the transaction, his mind raced. He glanced out the window at the van, noticing another person approaching it cautiously. This was his chance. Acting on impulse, he grabbed a pen and quickly wrote a message on the back of the receipt Officer Daniels had just signed. "Check the white van at the back of the lot," he scribbled, folding the receipt to conceal the message. Handing over the receipt along with a few coins as change, Alex said, "Thanks, officer. Have a good night, and stay safe out there." Officer Daniels pocketed the receipt without a glance, nodding his thanks as he turned to leave. Alex watched him go, his heart pounding. He had done all he could for now. It was out of his hands. Turning back to the register, Alex tried to calm his nerves by focusing on closing tasks, though his eyes strayed to the van every few seconds. The seeds of doubt and fear planted in his mind refused to be stilled, but he hoped that if there was indeed something wrong, Officer Daniels would act on the note hidden within the folds of the receipt. Officer Daniels stepped outside into the cool night air, coffee in hand, preparing for the long night ahead. The gas station's neon lights hummed in the background, casting a warm glow over his patrol car. As he settled into the driver's seat, his mind was already on the cases awaiting him back at the station. Yet something nagged at him, a feeling that he was missing something important. He took a sip of the strong black coffee, the bitterness snapping him back to the present. As he set the cup down, he remembered the receipt he had stuffed into his pocket. Pulling it out, he intended to toss it away but noticed it was folded oddly. Curiosity piqued. He unfolded it and found the hastily scribbled message from Alex. "Check the white van at the back of the lot." The message took a moment to sink in. Officer Daniels looked up, scanning the gas station lot through his rearview mirror. He spotted the white van parked away from the station's main flow of traffic. His police instincts kicked in, and he felt a rush of adrenaline. Something about the situation felt off, and Alex's unusual note confirmed his suspicions. Without wasting another moment, Officer Daniels started the engine and slowly drove towards the van, keeping his lights off to avoid drawing attention. As he approached, he could see that the van's windows were heavily tinted, making it impossible to see inside. He parked his patrol car at a distance and reported his location and the suspicious vehicle to dispatch, requesting backup. While waiting for backup, Daniels observed the van from his car. He noticed that no one seemed to enter or leave the vehicle anymore, which struck him as odd given the earlier activity Alex had described. The atmosphere was tense, and every minute felt longer than the last. Officer Daniels reviewed his next steps, planning for various scenarios depending on what he might find. Finally, backup arrived, and 2 other patrol cars pulled up quietly behind his. The officers coordinated their approach, using hand signals to communicate and cover each other. Officer Daniels took the lead, his hand resting on his holster as a precaution. With a deep breath to steady his nerves, Daniels approached the van, his flashlight piercing the darkness. He tapped on the driver's window with the back of his flashlight, a standard procedure meant to alert anyone inside. The window rolled down slowly, and Officer Daniels was met with the face of a young man, looking confused and somewhat frightened. "Good evening, sir. We received a report of suspicious activity involving this vehicle. Can you step out and talk to me, please?" Officer Daniels kept his tone even and professional, not wanting to escalate the situation. The young man complied, stepping out into the cool night. He appeared nervous, his hands shaking slightly as he asked, "Is there a problem, officer? We just need to verify what's going on here. You've been parked for quite a while, and we've had concerns reported," Daniels explained, observing the man's reactions closely. As the conversation continued, more officers checked the van and began talking to the few remaining individuals in the area. Each piece of the puzzle started to come together, revealing a picture that Alex had been right to worry about. Officer Daniels felt a mix of relief and concern, relief that they had intervened when they did, and concern for what they might uncover next. As Officer Daniels continued his conversation with the young man from the van, his fellow officers systematically checked the vehicle and spoke to the other individuals nearby. Each response was cautious, their words measured, but nothing overtly incriminating was said. Still, the collective unease among them was palpable, confirming Daniel's suspicion that more was at play than a simple late-night gathering. The young man, whose name was revealed to be Mark, claimed they were just friends hanging out and catching up. However, his shaky demeanor suggested otherwise. Officer Daniels maintained a calm but firm tone, ensuring Mark that the quicker they could clear things up, the sooner everyone could go about their night. Meanwhile, one of the backup officers called Daniels over to the side of the van. They had discovered several boxes of electronics in the back, items that looked too new and too many to be casual possessions. The serial numbers on a few visible boxes matched those reported stolen in a recent burglary in a nearby town. This discovery shifted the tone from a routine check to a potential crime scene. Officer Daniels returned to Mark with a new level of seriousness. "We found some items in your van that have been reported stolen. Can you explain how they ended up in your vehicle?" he asked, watching Mark's reaction closely. Mark's face drained of color, and he stuttered before responding. I didn't know they were stolen. We were just supposed to transport them for a friend. I swear, I didn't know." Daniels nodded, understanding the fear and stress that Mark was under. "We're going to need to talk more about this friend and the arrangements you made. For now, you and your companions will need to come with us to the station for further questioning." As Mark and the others were quietly escorted to the patrol cars, Officer Daniels made a mental note to commend Alex. The young gas station worker's vigilance had potentially cracked open a broader investigation into a series of thefts that had puzzled the local police for weeks. Back at the station, the seriousness of the situation began to unfold as Mark and his friends were interviewed separately. Each story began to piece together a larger network of petty thefts and reselling of stolen goods. Officer Daniels oversaw the process, ensuring everything was done by the book to avoid any procedural errors that could jeopardize the case. Amidst the unfolding events, Officer Daniels took a moment to step outside. He pulled out his phone and dialed the gas station. Alex answered, his voice tinged with worry. "Alex, it's Officer Daniels. Your tip was spot on. We found stolen goods in the van, and it's leading us to break a bigger case. You did a great job tonight, staying alert and taking action. We'll handle it from here, but I wanted to thank you personally. You've made a real difference." Alex listened, relief washing over him. The worry of overreacting had weighed on him, and hearing Daniel's affirmation lifted a great burden. He hung up the phone, a sense of pride filling him. He had made a difference, not just in writing stories, but in real life, a story he would remember for years to come. As the evening wore on, the police station became a hub of activity. The officers involved with the case were busy processing the evidence collected from the van, cataloging the electronics and other items found. Meanwhile, Mark and his friends sat in separate interview rooms, each awaiting their turn to explain their involvement. Officer Daniels took charge of the interrogation process, methodically questioning each individual. One by one, their stories began to reveal a tangled web of connections involving a local theft ring. It was clear that this operation had been going on for some time, with stolen goods being moved through various hands before ending up at the gas station that night. In another room, a detective was making calls to other precincts to check if the recovered goods could be matched with other reported thefts. The list of stolen items included laptops, tablets, and other high-end electronics, many of which bore the serial numbers of items reported missing from a warehouse a few towns over. Meanwhile, at the gas station, Alex was closing up for the night. The events of the evening had left him rattled, but also filled with a sense of accomplishment. He swept the floors and locked the cash register, his mind replaying the moment he decided to write that note on the receipt. He wondered about the consequences of his actions, hoping that the young men involved were not in too deep and could find a way back to the right path. Back at the station, Officer Daniels was wrapping up the last of the interviews. The young men involved had all given similar accounts, It appeared they had been recruited by a figure known only as Big Pete, a name that rang a bell with the local crime unit. This Pete was known to the police as a small-time criminal who had recently escalated his activities. Daniels made a note to pursue this lead aggressively, recognizing that catching him could help dismantle the larger network. The night was late when Daniels finally sat down at his desk to compile his reports. He felt a mix of fatigue and satisfaction. The work was far from over, but they had made significant progress thanks to the initial tip-off from a vigilant gas station worker. He planned to visit Alex the next day to update him and express the department's gratitude formally. As dawn approached, the station quieted down. The suspects were held in custody, awaiting arraignment, while the stolen goods were secured in the evidence room. Officer Daniels finally allowed himself a moment of quiet, sipping another cup of coffee, this one much colder than the first, and reflected on the night's successes and the challenges ahead. The story of that night would not only stay with Alex, but would ripple through the police department, reinforcing the importance of community vigilance and cooperation. Officer Daniels knew that this was just one battle in an ongoing war against crime in their city, but it was a significant victory, and it had started with a simple, observant act by an ordinary young man. The morning after the arrest, the police station was abuzz with the aftershocks of the successful operation. Officers moved about, discussing the night's haul and the upcoming steps to deepen their investigation into the theft ring. Officer Daniels was at the forefront, directing efforts and coordinating with other departments to trace the network linked to Big Pete. In the community room, Mark and his friends sat quietly, the gravity of their situation sinking in. They were no longer just a group of friends caught up in something thrilling and risky. They were now key figures in a criminal investigation with serious legal consequences. During their interviews, it became clear that none of them had fully grasped the extent of the operation they were involved in, nor the severity of the law's response. Officer Daniels, taking a brief pause from his duties, prepared to bring in a social worker to speak with the young men. He believed they had been manipulated into their actions and hoped they could be redirected towards more positive paths through community programs and support. Meanwhile, Alex arrived at his morning shift at the gas station, still processing the events that had unfolded. He had received a call from Officer Daniels early in the morning, informing him of the arrests and the significant evidence they had uncovered. Daniels also mentioned that he would stop by later to speak with him personally, feeling a mix of nervousness and pride. Alex went about his morning duties, restocking shelves and preparing the station for the day's business. As promised, Officer Daniels arrived mid-morning. He found Alex behind the counter, serving a customer. Waiting for a quiet moment, he approached, his expression serious but friendly. "Alex, I can't thank you enough for what you did. Your actions last night helped us uncover not just a batch of stolen goods, but potentially crack a major theft operation." Alex listened, his eyes wide with the realization of the impact of his actions. "I'm just glad I could help, officer. It all seemed like something from one of my stories. I never thought I'd be involved in something like this." Officer Daniels smiled, handing Alex a formal letter of appreciation from the police department. "You did more than help. You initiated the whole operation. We need more citizens like you, vigilant and brave. You've got a good eye and a good heart. Ever thought of becoming a cop?" Alex chuckled, a bit overwhelmed. "I think I'll stick to writing about it for now," he replied, his mind already turning the night's events into a narrative. The officer nodded, understanding. "Well, if you ever change your mind, you know where to find us. Keep in touch, Alex, and keep observing. You never know when we might need your eyes again." With a final handshake, Officer Daniels left the gas station, back to his duties. Alex watched him go, a sense of fulfillment mingling with his creative aspirations. He realized that life sometimes presented real stories that were as thrilling as fiction, and he had just been part of one. Back at the station, Officer Daniels geared up for the next phase of the investigation, motivated by the success of the night and hopeful about unearthing more about the network they were up against. It was clear that the collaboration between the police and the community was crucial, and that maintaining these relationships could only help in their ongoing fight against crime. As the days passed, the repercussions of the gas station incident echoed throughout the community and the local police department. The arrest of Mark and his friends sparked a series of operations aimed at dismantling the larger network they were inadvertently a part of. Officer Daniels led these efforts with renewed vigor, encouraged by the success that had begun with a simple note on a receipt. In the community, news of Alex's role in uncovering the theft ring spread rapidly. Local newspapers picked up the story, hailing him as a vigilant citizen who exemplified the power of community awareness. The gas station saw an increase in customers, many stopping by not just for service, but to meet Alex, the young man who had made the headlines. Amid this newfound attention, Alex remained humble but took pride in his actions. He was invited to a community meeting where he was formally recognized by the city council. Standing before the community leaders and residents, Alex shared his experience, emphasizing the importance of being observant and proactive in reporting suspicious activities. "I never imagined that writing a quick note would lead to such a significant series of events," Alex said, addressing the crowd. "It shows that each of us can play a part in keeping our community safe. It's about doing the right thing, even when it seems like a small act." The police chief, present at the meeting, stepped forward to shake Alex's hand, presenting him with a certificate of commendation. Alex's actions are a perfect example of what can be accomplished when citizens and police work together, he announced. "We are safer when we look out for each other." Meanwhile, at the police station, the investigation continued to unravel the network linked to the stolen goods found in the van. With the information gathered from Mark and his associates, the police were able to make several more arrests, each leading them closer to the elusive Big Pete. The community's support and the effective police work were proving to be a formidable combination against local crime. Officer Daniels, who frequently updated Alex on their progress, invited him to participate in a community policing initiative. This program aimed to educate citizens on safety and the importance of cooperation with law enforcement. Alex accepted, eager to contribute more positively to his community. Through these initiatives, Alex found a new voice, one that spoke not just through written stories, but through active participation and engagement in real-world issues. His experiences at the gas station and the subsequent recognition had sparked a deeper interest in community service, which complemented his writing aspirations beautifully. As the weeks turned into months, the impact of that night at the gas station continued to resonate. Alex's story was used as a motivational example in community workshops, and he started a small blog to document his experiences and thoughts on community and safety. The blog gained a modest following, and Alex found himself more connected to his community than ever before. The positive outcomes of the case reinforced the benefits of vigilance and cooperation, and Alex, once just a young gas station worker with dreams of writing, had become an influential voice in promoting community awareness. The story of his simple act of courage continued to inspire others, proving that anyone has the power to make a significant difference in their community. Months after the incident, the community had changed noticeably, and so had Alex. The young man who once stood behind the cash register at a small gas station now played a pivotal role in fostering community safety and awareness. The story of his alertness and proactive step had not only propelled him into the local spotlight, but had also instilled a deeper sense of responsibility within him towards his neighbors and the wider community. Alex continued his work at the gas station, but his life had expanded beyond the routine of daily sales and fuel pumps. He was now a regular speaker at community centers, sharing his story and the crucial message that everyone has a role in community safety. His blog had evolved, featuring guest posts from local law enforcement and community leaders, providing tips on safety and personal security. It had become a go-to resource for community members, praised for its practical advice and empowering messages. One sunny afternoon, Alex organized a community event sponsored by various local businesses, including the gas station. The event featured safety demonstrations, workshops on crime prevention, and activities for children. It was a hit, drawing families, teenagers, and the elderly, all coming together to support a safer, more connected community. Alex walked among the booths, chatting with attendees, answering questions, and even helping some older residents understand how to use their smartphones to stay informed. Meanwhile, the police had finally caught up with Big Pete, leading to a significant trial that would hopefully dismantle the theft ring for good. Officer Daniels, who had become a mentor and friend to Alex, was there when Pete was arrested. He made sure to call Alex with the news, knowing how much the young man had contributed to reaching this point. At the close of the community event, Alex was called to the stage. The police chief was there, along with other dignitaries, to officially thank him. Alex's quick thinking and dedication helped us achieve a victory against crime in our community, the chief announced to the crowd, which responded with enthusiastic applause. His courage should remind us all that we can do our part, no matter how small it seems. Grateful and a bit overwhelmed by the applause, Alex took the microphone. Thank you, everyone. This journey has taught me that our actions create ripples, touching others' lives in ways we might not imagine. Let's continue to look out for each other and build a community where everyone feels safe and valued. As the event wound down, Alex stood looking over the park filled with happy, chatting people. He felt a profound connection to these faces, knowing his actions had helped contribute to this vibrant community scene. He was more than just a participant. He was a catalyst for change. In the months that followed, Alex would leverage his experiences to apply for a scholarship in criminal justice. His goal was to blend his love for writing with his commitment to public service, aiming to become a policymaker to advocate for effective community policing nationwide. His story had begun with a simple act of writing a note, but it was clear now that his journey was just getting started, with endless possibilities ahead.